Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of the PCN Podcast for Season 11. We're doing a season preview here. I'm your host, Saul Goodman Jr., and I am joined today by 6 other individuals. I got Bentner here. Say hello, Bentner. All right. I've got the legendary Chuck of Norris of Benfica. I've also got Dorsey here, my co-host, and he'll be joining me in future
You're all
podcasts. I've got Khan here, the legendary goalie, with a little bit of a workout in front of him. And I've got Peter Savage here as well.
Warrior.
Hell yeah, brother.
And then last but not least, I have Will. I believe Will's still here with us. All right. So now that everyone's introduced, I just wanted to let everyone know listening that we're doing a little bit of a different style here. It's supposed to be a little bit more conversational. We do have some topics, but it's meant to be just kind of we're going to talk about what everyone's thinking about that particular topic, and kind of be free and open, more conversational and more entertaining. With that being said, the top 3 teams for each league is our first topic. As far as Super League goes, the primary answer from our panelists was Benfica, second to Juventus and Inter, and then we also have votes for Chelsea and Atlanta. So what are we thinking there for that Super League team? We got a good mix. Obviously, Benfica's returning there.
Inter's also returning. They just won the preseason cup and look strong.
Yeah, except for that game against Atlanta. No, that was a great game.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit different looking top of the table. I think you could see a team like Chelsea impress right away. I think Atlanta's a team that's rebuilt and could get up there. And I think there's a group of like 3 or 4 teams kind of below these 5 that, may just be Super Cup contenders, but they also, if things click right, could surprise people and kind of make a run.
Oh yeah, for sure. This season, it's probably gonna be the most competitive season yet. We said that last season. It was definitely right. Like any team, like in the top 10, was a really good team.
Yeah, I think that's starting to be more and more true. The longer PCN goes on, the more competitive this is getting, and you're seeing that competition throughout the teams, not just on one team.
I think so. I think, Chuck, one big question people are asking about Benfica is, obviously you guys had the elite defense last season, but what have you guys done to maybe improve your attack, and do you think you can score 10, 15, 20 more goals this season?
Yeah, I think that we can definitely improve our offense this season, and that's something we're looking to do. We're going to try to keep our defense strong, and offensively we've signed Swifties, and we have a couple new guys who've joined the team who haven't played leagues before, but they're talented FIFA players, and I think that they could come in and contribute. As a team, gelling a little bit more, and figuring out, just from playing longer together, figuring out how to make it work.
And that signing a Taco kid, great player, man. He really is a good guy.
Yeah, he's definitely, he's a good locker room presence.
Yeah, so I think that was the biggest takeaway from anything from last season was Benfica's defense was lights out. I think it was 20 goals in 38 games, something like that. I don't remember the exact stats. But you guys lost 2 CBs, didn't you, over the offseason, 2 starters?
No, Ignition 69 played, started for us like the first half of last season, but then he had like work and real life things come up, and so he hasn't played in a while. So we just released him in the past week to open up a roster spot. But other than that, everyone's back. Perps has less availability this year because he's working for work. So, that is a big hole, but we've signed a couple more defenders to help out with that, Taco being one of them.
And y'all have Rambo.
I got you.
So you're fine.
Yeah, I don't know if you
Rambo's amazing.
Rambo up there.
You can never go wrong with a little Rambo in your life.
Yeah, and I think Inter, for the other big contender, at least from last season, like they had a lot more transition, I think, than people expected. Talbot came back, and then he left again. Darcy's there, Louis there.
A1 and Schmerda leaving.
Yeah. So
A1, Schmerder, they lost pretty much their entire.
But you see, they won the tournament tonight, so clearly Kufa has a plan.
And they still got Jamie.
Kufa and Stride together. I mean, and they didn't even have Kid Nasty tonight. That's the usual.
Yeah, Vanzetti made a comeback. I haven't seen him play much since like their initial season in League One, but he came back. He put in an absolute shift. Shout out to Vanzetti.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're one of the biggest success stories in PCN. They came in that Season 8 League One season, and they've just gotten better and better, and the core is stuck together, and they had won the treble last year in the cup, but I think winning the title is another challenge. And out of those two, I think those are the two most popular. Like, who do you guys think would be the third biggest contender?
That, in my opinion, I think it's Juve. They have a really good squad. I mean, it's a deep squad. Italiano, he won the treble back in the day. You know he's gonna be coming back for it. It's been a while since they tasted silverware down in Italy. I honestly think they're coming for it. This is the best squad they've had in such a long time.
I think that Chelsea is going to really be dangerous this season. They walked all over League One last year. They really didn't belong down there. These guys have all been playing 11s for years. They have a lot of experienced players. We have actually some overlap. Like some guys who play with us play with them sometimes, and vice versa. They have a lot of very good players.
This is a bit biased, but I know I'm on Atlanta, but I'm going to say Atlanta's probably going to get top three.
I was thinking Atlanta too.
Excuse me, sir. Can you move your mic out of your esophagus?
Yeah. No, I don't think he's wrong. Mike in esophagus and all. I think it's between Juve and Atlanta because, at least in my mind, Atlanta's made some huge signings. You guys brought in some fresh talent, and I think that's going to take. I think you brought in on your defensive end a whole new defense.
The PSG defense.
Foot King, Matty Dot.
Yeah, essentially.
Matty and Foot King are a really good duo.
Those were two people that were contending for team of the season.
And adding Buzzkill is huge too. I've always been a big fan of him as a player.
And
as long as Murda as well.
Yeah.
And Bretta.
A1 was
Riolito.
A1 was a standout player in AFCON, so I'll be interested to see if he ended up playing more striker like he did in AFCON. But either way, I think he's going to show out.
I'm so glad Exile was in here. He'd be talking about Friolito for half an hour.
I love Friolito, man.
Everybody watch out for Frio.
I love Frio too.
I've seen it myself. Don't look him over.
I love Frio. I played with him on Leverkusen, and he's a great player. I don't think he got as much credit because he also had Liverpool Kev on his side. So they were two very good strikers up there. And then he also had Raven, who was more of a goal-scoring cam than anything. So he was kind of lost in the pack there. I think he might shine a little bit.
And I gotta shout out my boys. I gotta say, don't sleep on Milan. I think the team, at least on paper, looks even better and deeper than it was last season. And we're hungry. We're tired of not getting it. So
just finish second again, just like back in the good old
days. That's 5 or 6 really, really, really strong elite teams in Super League that we've just listed off the top of our heads. And I know this is preseason and we're looking forward and we haven't taken form into account and people's results and stuff. But if we can think of 5 or 6 really good teams like that at the top of Super League, we're in for a great season.
There's still some other teams too. Like if you watch the preseason tournament, Meat's team at Man City, they surprised.
They were moving the ball well.
Yes, they were.
Yeah, they surprised me last season as well, and it looks like they're just continuing on
if
that.
anyone was unaware of what happened, half of their team, mainly their European guys, they split off. Well, I say split off, but they went back to New York under a different manager. But at Man City, he's brought in a few of the Real Madrid guys from last season. like Winnie and stuff.
Some of the cartel guys.
Yeah,
I do have to say, if you can take them to penalties, you might want to do it after watching their game earlier today.
Lord.
That
they
shootout
went to penalties
was
3 times tonight.
It was a wild one. Well, the one they went out on was the one I was watching. It was.
Meat had a bad day. It's like sorry, Meat.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Meat, if you're listening, man. That went out for a throw-in.
What a great guy.
You can even see his hands on his controller, and he's not touching the stick. And he's like, "I didn't touch the stick. How did it go over there?"
But shout out to Spurs as well, the other semifinalist. I was playing with them a bit in the preseason. I was thinking instantly within a couple games, I was like, the people are sleeping on this team. They don't have the depth that others do, so if people start missing games for some reason, that could hurt them. But I think they're going to surprise some people this season as well.
Yeah, I was going to shout them out as well. John is a good player, and we actually sold them You Ain't Schnet. So he's bringing some championship experience to Tottenham's squad.
And also, another team. Speaking of the former half of going back, Meat's team going back. I think New York City is a pretty good team this year. if you've been around for a while, you know Farman likes to say he's the best goalie, but he's never really came to PCN and play. But he's got his squad now. He's managing
Time to
the Super
see.
League.
Time
Yeah,
to see if he'll
to
step
back
up.
up all the shit talking that he's been doing for the past 5 seasons.
And going back on another team too that really surprised me when I look on paper, Leverkusen. Expect Bills, perfect mode. They still got Tran. That team's going to be really good, just going off paper alone.
Yeah, I mean, that's a team that's gone over a lot of change between last season and this season. Cork's no longer the manager. You got Zijig in there.
Zebra.
And you've got
Zebra's gone. Darcy's gone.
some familiar face. Zebra's gone. Darcy's gone. Dad Job's gone. I was there for the second half of the season. That team is doing a complete overhaul. So if they're ending up to be competitive, I would say that's mission accomplished.
Yeah, and I think we're at the stage in Super League where there's a lot of teams that if you end up finishing mid-table, like that's a really damn good season because of just how competitive it is. Like last season, there was not a single team that you could just basically show up and say you could win. Every game you had to put everything in. There's a lot of teams that we're not really going to mention too much tonight that probably deserve a little bit of praise and a little bit more than we're going to be able to give them, but that's just how deep it is now.
Yeah, and that'll make for a good topic in a later podcast on a team that's kind of surprised us this far. With the results that they're putting in, not every team's going to get mentioned on this because it's some of it is who you're familiar with and who you know, and that's kind of what you can go on. But there's always going to be teams that kind of just come out of nowhere just because they've been working on their chemistry and they're working on their form. With that being said, for Super League, the next topic is the bottom 3 teams, and there seems to be a consensus of our panelists that Young Boys is going to be down there, led by the one, the only real 420. Another popular pick is America and Villa. So with that being said, why so much hate for Young Boys?
I think it mainly has to do with Real 420 being such a big mouth that he is, yet his team isn't able to back up all of his talking.
Couldn't agree more.
On the Villarreal point, I don't think that's a bad team.
It's not a bad team. It's just I think they were unlucky with how last season ended up going.
I don't know. They've got some good players. I mean, the management that's taken over this Villarreal team came in for Roma late in the season when they folded. And I'm not sure they're going to be walkovers. I know there's a really deep league. And being, having 17 teams that are better than you is not going to be super, super difficult. But I don't know. I think that's a pretty decent roster.
If anything, what's it called? Yeah, why did the team slip from my head?
River Plate.
Arsenal. I don't think
going to say River Plate. River Plate's been a surprise.
I don't think Arsenal's going to be that great this season, man.
Yeah, me either.
There was 2 other teams that were mentioned, and it was Arsenal and America. They were also in that discussion. America got a few votes, not quite as much as Young Boys and Villa, but I think there's just a lot of uncertainty about those teams, which I think leads to the hesitation.
I mean, if you paid attention to AFCON, Bidon made his return to management with Senegal, but they were arguably I believe they finished last place behind Libya, if I am right, and Libya gave up 10 goals in the first match day, and they ended up finishing last of them. So that just. And that Senegal team is basically the Arsenal team, so I don't think
they're going to struggle.
Yes.
Yeah,
If they struggled in AFCON, then they're definitely going to struggle in the Super League.
Yeah, I do think America is a team that I understand why people are putting them down there. That's kind of the newest team that kind of came up with a lot of people. It's some new faces and some old people. But like from what I've seen them playing against them and the way that they're recruiting on the trail like crazy, I think I don't think they're going to be up, in the top upper half of the table, but it wouldn't surprise me if they actually end up surprising people, maybe finish 14th, 15th, somewhere in there.
All they just need to do, the goal for them probably is just to stay up, and I respect it.
Yeah, I think they're just recruiting defenders now, so I think if they can get that together, they might have a shot.
To be a bottom half team and staying up in the Super League is going to be a tough feat, and you can't just write those teams off whenever you play them every week in, week out. They're going to need those points, and they're going to try to get them any way they can.
Oh, yeah,
it's not going to be easy games.
Yeah, I think we're getting to a point where unless the team is folded, like we occasionally have in Super League, all of the teams are going to be competitive to a degree. Some more so than others, obviously. but I think it's getting to the point where there's so much talent, especially in the Super League, that it's no game is going to be an easy game.
That is 100% correct.
At least
there's been times in the past where it's
that's
just
my
like
feeling.
You would question why is that team, like, not to be like disrespectful or anything, but like why is that team in Super League? I mean, compared to others, but this year it's gonna be interesting. That's the hardest thing with predictions is getting them right. If anything else, you can't get everything right, obviously, but
predicting predictions is pretty easy, I gotta say.
It's very easy to throw some names out there. It's a much different
I would
story.
say
Right.
that some games are much easier than others. Like you go in and playing any of those top 6 teams that we listed off versus playing the rest of the league. It's not like it's not easy by any means against the rest of the league, but it's just it's a very different level. The very top teams.
Oh yeah, for sure. You just can't get complacent.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I think exactly. If you get complacent and you kind of slack off and take it as, oh, this team's a bottom 5 team or whatever, then I think that's when you get into some trouble. Because I don't think any team now is completely out of place.
No. It's going to be an interesting season. Probably the most interesting one yet.
Does Young Boys still have Epic Fonzie?
Yes. If I'm correct,
Yes,
Epic Fonzie is the manager and Real 420 is the co-manager, but I think Real is running most of the show.
That's the way it seems in Discord, at least. So he's never one to not speak up. So it is what it is. With that being said, let's move on to League One and start with the top 3 teams. And there really seems to be a much more consensus for this, as far as pretty much everyone is predicting that Real Madrid is going to be the leader there, especially with the talent they have. And then shortly behind them, you have Bayern, Roma, and Dortmund in no particular order. It just seems to be a top 4 there that have just kind of separated themselves from the pack.
Well, so Roma did. So that was Bidon's team. I feel like some people maybe didn't realize that they moved up to Arsenal Super League. So that's pretty much a team that's rebuilding right now. So I don't know right now if I would expect them to be. Bayern, I think, is a good shout. J-Way has a ton of experience, was able to put together a Super League winning team in Orlando. And then Dortmund, obviously that's League's team. It's a little thin right now. I think he's got to add some depth there. I really think that the top 4 or 5 is going to be fascinating in League One, kind of behind Real Madrid. Because there's a lot of teams that I think come up from League Two or just kind of come in, their new teams that are playing well. It's just a matter of how they can do in a 34 game season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like, me being a Real Madrid player, I'm going to say most people expect us to win the league, but the game, it's one out there on the field. It's not one out on paper. You could have the best squad on paper, but if you don't have the chemistry, it's like it showed tonight. We lost the meet in Man City, and it really woke everybody up that, I mean, sure, we're a really good team, but we need to be better as a unit and not as individuals. Because individually,
nothing's happened yet.
Like, you could say, like, individually, we have the best players in the division on every position. But if we're not playing as individuals and not a team, then we're not going to be able to perform. Like, we're playing like real life Real Madrid. Individuals, not a team.
There's I mean, like you said, it's a lot to do with chemistry more so than individual skill. You can have the best talented players, but if you guys don't play together.
If I can throw in a dark horse here, Frankfurt are not going to be a bad team. Schuda played for Borussia Dortmund last year with King Snow, and he put up a lot of goals. We know Hinckley's a good player, and they've got some other Super League talent players that have been around the league for a while. They could be a team to watch out for as well.
I agree. We had a hell of a friendly with them at Milan the other day. I mean, I think it took us 120 minutes, and I mean, it was a dead even game, and maybe it was a wake-up call for us, but, that's a team going toe-to-toe with a Super League team. And then in the Cup tonight, RB Leipzig had a good run, and they were a real tough out as well. And I don't think that's a team anyone's really talking about, but shout out to them tonight for a good performance. And
those are the scariest teams, the ones you don't know anything about.
Will, you actually had another dark horse. That believe you said Braga is going to move forward.
Yeah, Braga, again, another team that performed well in the preseason cup tonight. They play in LG. Portuguese Killa, he's been around for a while, but he's got some Super League players in his squad as well. I recognize names like Menon and Sugar Bee, and Dak is the GOAT. I've seen some of those guys around.
Yeah, it's their first official foray, and I mean, if you are familiar with LG, LG Wolves. But it's their first foray in the PCN. I hope they stick around. They're cool guys over there.
They got some good players, too. It's going to be a good team.
One thing I'm interested to see is how the 3 promoted teams do. So they all ended up sticking around, which is really good to see. So Red Bulls they went over to Monaco, but so Monaco, Marseille, and Valencia, the 3 teams got promoted. I'd be curious to see if any one of them can really push on and try to get the back-to-back promotion. We've yet to see that yet from League 2. But this could be the season it happens. I think all 3 teams have a lot of depth and experience together, and we'll see how that plays out in League 1.
Yeah, I think Monaco might be able to make a serious push at the playoffs at a 6 spot or 5 spot.
Yeah, Monaco is a really strong
Monaco's
team.
good enough. Yeah, their passing is pretty good.
And Monaco.
Yeah, I was just about to say, shout out to Nozzle.
Monaco brought in Argentino. He should have been the Golden Boot winner for last season, but a manager didn't put it in his stats. And he's on loan at Monaco right now. Be a really good pickup for them.
Yeah, I think Argentino, I've played with him for a long time. Really good dude. I think he's very underrated. He's not very well known throughout the league. But if he gets a chance and he's able to show what he can do, I think he'll surprise a bunch of people.
Yeah, he's a really good player. Like when I play with him, like he's a sleeper. It's like one of those players. Like if I want to talk about a sleeper, going back to it, it's like if you like most of them, AFC Pineapple really made a name for himself with what's it called, Togo during AFCON.
Yeah. Well, I knew Pineapple from a long time ago in VFL, and I knew the second he finally got a chance in this league, he would take off, and so I'm glad to see him up there in Super League now. But yeah, I think League One, I think this is maybe a little bit more uncertainty on the whole with the teams. I think there's a few more new teams this season than were last. So I think there's going to be some surprises, probably some teams we think are going to be better that aren't going to be, and some teams that we're not talking about at all that are going to really surprise us. So I'm always really excited to see League One these seasons now. It's really fun to keep track of.
Oh, yeah. If you look back at Super League 3 years ago, League One's at that level now. And it's just really awesome to see because you can go to League One and everyone thinks you're taking this huge step down, but you're really not. A lot of these teams could probably compete in the Super League, and that's what makes the competition level so much better than a lot of other leagues here we have in North America.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say the only difference between Super League and League One really is the uncertainty around who's going to be showing up and who's going to be the surprisers. Like Super League, you can kind of predict who's going to be the top 6 or so. And then after that, it's kind of a guessing game. I think League One, maybe you have a top 2, top 3, but then after that, you really don't.
It also is like a proving ground. You have more space to show yourself, show what you can do.
And then as far as like kind of the relegation teams, I think there's a couple teams right now. Roma they only got like 3 or 4 on the roster. Orlando, we're still looking for a manager. Other than those 2 right now who look like maybe the obvious ones on paper who might struggle, are there any teams that you guys think might kind of struggle to survive this season?
I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you. Like, it's just unpredictable because you can never know. Like, if you go back, I think last season we probably covered it, who we thought, but I don't think we got any of them right. It's just you never know. Like, anything can happen. It's FIFA.
I think one of the teams that stands out to me is LAFC. I look at the roster, I don't really know anybody there. Like, they could surprise, but just nobody I personally played with myself.
Like I said earlier, those are the rosters that personally scared me the most. When you don't know anything about the other team, it's like at the end of the NBA season, like the people when they start playing their G League teams because they're not going to make playoffs. It's just like that. You have no tape on the guys. You have no idea if they're good, if they're bad, what their tendencies are. You just go into those games blind and there's nothing to lose.
Babe, what do you feel about Wolfsburg?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, that's
the thing. Yeah,
they're Jamaican.
People are not.
Mangoleon's team with Scalacci.
Yeah, that's how I was looking at them too.
That's probably the only name I could recognize on that team.
I will say, as long as Chivas, they play with the numbers that they have, they should be fine. But just like it's a group that for the last couple of seasons when they played,
right?
Yeah, so it's a group that when they've played with 11, they've always been pretty competitive, but there's been times in seasons where they've gotten down to 6, 7, 8 every game, and if that's the case for them next season, I could see them struggling. So Chivas, love you guys. Please just play, get everybody on.
Is Foster going
The one
back?
team that I really don't know, anything about, but I don't hear good things, and maybe it's just one of their players' reputations, similar to the real 420 situation in Super League, is the team that everyone loves me pronouncing, Marseille.
Dirty. They got dirty.
it's one of those teams that you love to hate. Downey Cal.
I don't think they're gonna be a bad team. I don't think they're gonna be like a good team. I think they're just gonna be like a sound little mid-table side.
Yeah.
Downey's on the Discord. It's gonna be a little peaceful. He's not gonna be just
A
random.
deep roster is a big help for a League One team, though.
That's true. I can't judge. Like, with the personalities they have, they could implode, similar to how fast Seoul imploded, which didn't even make it to the season.
Rip Seoul.
That was an explosion.
Speaking of which, Peter, no. But they've just got a lot of personality over there, and I don't know how well that's going to mesh.
Well, at least they have a season mostly playing together in League Two, so it's not like they're just meshing for the first time this season. Like, they have done this for a couple months before, so that should give them a leg up. But they didn't have the best showing tonight in the preseason cup. But that's a one-off. You never know.
One bad night, yeah,
Against the top 6 Super League team.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah, title winning.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta get past Inter first.
Any other teams?
I think we've touched everyone except for Leicester.
Well, then let's move on to League Two. So who do you guys think is going to be the winner of League Two?
Wolves, hands down.
Wolves. It's the most heard L2 team I've ever heard.
Can you guys just get Logan's dick out of your mouth?
No, I hear it so much. L2's going to.
I think Barcelona's going to run for the money. I think King Snow went down there with intention.
Thank you. I said the same thing. Barcelona is going to surprise people.
Yep.
I disagree with you guys. I actually think Napoli is, because they have Gretzka, who was an L1 team.
What's his name again? He changes every week.
Goretzka.
Goretzka.
Oh, he's
Vidal.
finally back to Goretzka. Oh.
Yeah, he went to L2 for some reason. I have no idea why.
I think he's playing striker. That's what I've heard.
No comment. He was a CDM when he got it.
Two teams I'm looking forward to see what they can do in their third season together is Fiorentina, who used to be CSKA Moscow, and then Sporting. Two teams that have had the same managers for the third season of League Two, and I think the building that they've been able to do with the core and then learning how to play leagues, I think one, if not both of those, is going to push for promotion this season. So I'm excited to see what they can do.
I think another team that's going to be a sleeper is PSV. I'm looking at this roster, a lot of those guys I played on late night league with, and they can ball. PSV is going to surprise people.
And they beat Napoli in the preseason cup.
Yeah.
How did Wolves do tonight? Do you all know?
They lost to Dortmund 2-1.
Shout out to Kendall.
Okay. Yeah. League's never a team you want to sleep on. I know that for sure.
League Two, we do want to get you guys on here. League Two matters. Once again, I don't want to be another season where League Two, no one decides that they want to say anything. I've been impressed the first 2 seasons. There's been people expected a bunch of defaults and teams dropping out. That really hasn't been the case. I think there actually were more defaults in League One last season than were in League Two. So, a lot of guys that they just don't have the experience, or they just haven't been playing long enough to have the skill level yet. But these guys are passionate about it down there, and I don't think it makes sense to just ignore them for 2 months.
No, they care.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think one of the teams that really cares and that's doing its best to put a team out there is a player that Dorsey and I played with on late night was Daddy Aikens. Well, I tried to play with him. He never really showed up. But he's got 4 pages worth of signings, trying to bring people in. You can tell he's trialing people. He's trying to get some sort of squad together. So, they obviously cared, and it's becoming easier and easier for League Two to sign people. So that's obviously a progression of the league.
Yeah, so we'd love to have a League Two expert come on here during the season a couple times, so that way we're not just sitting here. Since we're not playing in it, most of us aren't really watching it all the time. We don't want to look stupid or have dead analysis. So shout out to League Two guys, hit us up.
Shout out to King Smurf, the GOAT.
Everyone on here responded to a questionnaire and put in answers so that I would know and Dorsey would know that they had something to talk about. So at League Two, ball's in your court. Sign up when that notice goes out, and you'll get on here. Any guesses as to who will be the bottom 3 teams for
Toss a
League
coin.
Two? I don't know if we're going to have much of a... Yeah. I don't know if
There's no
much of a
relegation
topic
either,
here.
so it's kind of irrelevant. I don't want to make it sound like... I'm not saying it's a bad question. Just there's no relegation, so these guys don't have any consequences for being the bottom 3 teams in that league. So,
all right. Well, let's move on to our next topic. which is the best transfers of the offseason. Transfers that you saw either through Discord or through the forums that were like, wow, that's going to be great for that team.
There's two, and there's only two that really mean the most.
God, if you
Peter Savage to Real Madrid.
Phil to Inter, Swifty to Benfica. Phil is the best GK in the league.
You're missing one.
I don't know if I am.
Savage to Real Madrid.
Yes.
Swifty's the best cam in the league. We're talking about stats here for both of those players. I know it's subjective, but Benfica didn't score as much as the other top 6 teams last season. Brought in Swifty, one of the best playmakers in the league. Phil is the best keeper. Will probably win points on his own for Inter.
I'm gonna prove that wrong.
He showed that tonight. He clamped.
Yeah, he actually played.
I think you could definitely make a case for Swifty because we've talked about Benfica and how their defense was solid. If they score more goals, I don't know if anyone's going to be able to keep up with them. They add one of the best playmakers, so how can that not be one of the best transfers?
Yeah, Swifty's a good player. He's fit right in here at Benfica. We've got a lot of good players, though, and it's not just going to come down to just him. We've got to all work together to produce.
I think Schmerda was a pretty big signing too on right before for Atlanta.
Well, and Buzzkill going over there as well.
Yeah. Atlanta had 3 big ones between Schmerda, Buzzkill, and Foot King. You could put that and Matty Dot. You could add all 4 of them.
Yeah. I think it's a little different conversation of a team that's kind of getting built from the ground up, and that's sort of what Atlanta was, and the few other teams. I think the teams. I think I kind of like Will's approach in terms of 2 teams that were established and they came and they made big additions. I think Juve. I think Italiano bringing back some of his old guys, bringing back Matthias, Realms, Moro, bringing Unix in. I think he was able to get a lot of his old guys back, and I think that you can make the argument maybe some of them were at their best few seasons ago, but I think Italiano knows how to get the best out of them, and being able to get so many of them back is going to make them really good.
Couldn't agree more.
So also, it looks like Chelsea, I don't think that Papa Reds and D'Lo were on their teams last year, and both of them are very good center backs. Papa Reds is great when he's awake. When he's asleep, not so much. D'Lo used to manage American Outlaws, and they won multiple titles back in the EGN and like ACL and other leagues. So adding him to their defense is a very big get.
I've got another one also. Chronic was one of the best players in the league last season. He's playing for Lyon. I know that Smokebreak's team isn't going to be at the top of everyone's leaderboards here, but he could be the difference between a mid-table finish and a top half finish for sure.
I agree. That's also one of the reasons why I like Talentless. Going over to Liverpool. It's surprising, but I think that's actually going to boost them up. From where we had them before.
It is a little surprising, but at the same time, it isn't. If you see his fanhood towards Liverpool,
it honestly, makes it might be the move that Liverpool needed.
Yeah, Rowdy did a good job getting them out
Maybe
of.
He's offering to buy his manager.
Yeah, that was an incredible.
Yeah, and none of us talked about them for relegation. We didn't talk about them for top of the league, but I think that kind of shows you. There's a few teams, Lyon, a few teams that we didn't. Manchester United rebuilt under K-Man.
Lazio too. Picking up Liverpool, Madcap.
Yeah, so these are teams that we're all kind of thinking, consensus was maybe just mid-table. I think a player who could make a big difference. PSG had to rebuild all over again. Another team we haven't really touched on, but they went out and they got Fuji, who had an incredible first season with Lyon last year, and I think he could single-handedly kind of turn their fortunes around and get them back maybe close to where they were last season.
Yeah, but them losing their 2 center backs. I see what you're saying, though. Fuji's a great pickup.
It hurts, but they got Rico in to help replace that. Seiha's always going to do his diligence to get a team that's going to play the best of skill.
K Fuji last season, he was incredible. He was a game changer. I think he'll step up again this season when it comes for PSG.
And there are talks that Conflict Itachi is also a free agent now.
I don't know if that's talks anymore. He flat out said it in the trial section that he's a free agent. I'm not sure what happened there.
So that'd be a great pickup for a bottom half team, I think, to really get a proven goal scorer in the league. Could be the difference between a relegation finish or a mid-table finish and moving up from there.
Yeah, he was another team of the season player. last season. He's a great striker. I played with him before. He's a good guy too. I'm not sure what the falling out with PSG was or Milan, but I think he'll definitely latch on somewhere and prove his worth.
What I heard is that he apparently had like about as like decent / just easy exit as you ever could from Milan. I think the decision was made today. I don't know if it was more on his part or the team's part, but apparently he was just super easy about it and like, awesome, wish you guys luck. So yeah, I don't think it'll take him too long to find a team.
No, I think there'll be plenty of teams that will enjoy having him on board and really value that signing.
Another player that was surprising was Capone to America. Like, I did not see that coming at all.
I
don't think anyone did.
It was surprising seeing him go to back to Lazio.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I mean, America, that'll be a good move for him.
Yeah, I mean, Lazio has been his only team since his beginning of PCN, so it was surprising to see him leave, but also surprising in the destination. You expect him. There was rumors that he was in the Inter camp for a little bit. There's rumors he was trying out for other camps. So to end up with America, which I don't think anyone really saw coming.
I think it's mainly due to his timing. Because like most of the teams had most Super League teams have their stuff figured out like well in advance. Like as soon as the season ended, everyone was already like halfway through recruiting. Gotta love Tampa.
Yeah, by the time AFCON started, pretty much.
Once AFCON started, most PCN teams are already set. So, barring a few late changes. So
now they're working on
like after AFCON, they were looking for a team. Like it's just hard. And I think Capone found a spot with a team in Super League that was still needing a middle CB because I know he wants to play middle in a 3-back. He found a spot.
I mean, to respond to your point about recruiting timetables, we had a lot of stability. So we had, people staying over who were already on the team, but we didn't actually sign anyone until after AFCON. Like we didn't talk to, like we had a couple of players we were looking at during AFCON. We began recruiting in earnest until after AFCON.
Yeah, I think there was like I was hearing that a lot, like all the teams are done recruiting like by AFCON, and like I think some teams had done a lot of early stuff, but I think there were a few teams in Super League that kind of waited, and I think a lot of League 1 and League 2 have just been building ever since then. Real Madrid I think is the only one that was kind of coming together at the size, like that hadn't played together, that kind of came together early for League 1.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the nature of the beast. Everyone waits to see how the dust in Super League settles, and then from there, it kind of filters on. Some of the lesser-known teams are going to kind of get the second choice, just because you have all of these top squads that people want to win trophies. That's what playing PCN is about. You play to have fun, but having fun is half of it is winning. So
yeah, of course.
With that being said, our next topic we've kind of touched on already, so I'm going to skip to the PCN member questions. This week we have 2 questions to tackle, and they're related, so we'll start with the first one and move on to the second. The first one is the 3-5-2 essentially a 5-back?
No.
What are your thoughts?
Yes, change my mind.
No,
yes,
it is not.
Depends on how you play it.
Let me go
just like how a 4-3-3 can look like a 4-4 or a 4-5-1. If you're playing defensively, it looks like a 5-back. If you're playing attacking, it doesn't.
You have 5 midfielders, and most of them are aggressive. It's PCN. Most of them are aggressive. So you're playing a very aggressive formation. There's no way that it's a 5-back.
And they don't have to be aggressive.
And cheating. Because you're not supposed to have 5-back.
I think I don't accept the premise that players have to play aggressively just because it's PCN.
I'm not saying they have to. I'm saying with the shaping, and usually they end up playing aggressive.
I don't know. We've played some teams that get pretty packed in, man. Like when you get 60% possession against them, it looks like a 5-back.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting dominated like that, you're putting 10, at least 9, probably 10 back there, because you need to get some sort of possession to relieve that pressure. So I think you could go either way here, which is kind of the debate with this formation, but it is the most used formation.
I mean, I will say there's definitely ways it's played differently, and some teams play more defensively. I have very rarely seen like the two wingers basically playing with wing backs and almost never like go past midfield and just basically sit in front and try to not be able to people behind him. Like I've never seen people take it to that extent. So while it may be more defensive for some teams, or their DMs may sit a little bit deeper, I don't think I've ever seen it and thought, oh, I'm playing a 5-back.
Now, I do agree with you on that point that when teams do play it defensively, it's usually the defensive mids that are more defensive than the outside mids, because I guess you really need the width to be able to generate any kind of attack. Since the outside mids are your only wide players, they have to be up there to threaten. Be very conservative, and it's just like how in a 4-2-3-1, if you're playing conservatively, it looks like a 6-back because you have your DMs back there.
Yeah, pretty much 3-5-2 allows you to defend with 5, attack with 5. So you're going to defend with your 2 CDMs, and you're going to defend with your 3 center backs, and you're going to attack with your 2 strikers, cam, and outside mids. The outside mids are going to be running more than anybody, so that can transition your formation from that 5 in defense, 5 in attack, and they're going to be the ones that are going up and down.
Yeah, and I think that works better in FIFA than it does in real life, because all of our pros are so pacey. Like in real life, not all the players have that much speed to cover as much ground, but you can have everyone start in the middle and they just run to the side and they get there quick.
That kind of leads into the second question, which I think you're kind of touching on now, Chuck, which I'll just put out there, which is this: what formation can tactically go up against a 3-5-2? And there is a pretty good consensus here that it's the 4-3-3.
Yeah, holding.
Or a 4-5-1.
Why is that?
Like a more defensive version of it. You could do like a 4-1-4-1 also.
Yep. A 3-4-3 also was my inclusion in that. It's anything, if you can stack up a 3 on top of their center backs, you can let your midfielders and your wing backs play forward a little bit, and you can overwhelm in certain areas and get certain numbers on certain sides, and you can create a mismatch that way.
The difficulty, of course, being that by putting 3 people forward, it's hard not to concede the midfield.
Correct.
And I think the reason I said that this kind of your answer, Chuck, was touching on this a bit, was that because everyone's pros in this online league are so athletic, they can cover so much more ground than real life. So the 4-3-3 doesn't combat the 3-5-2 as much as it would in real life.
Yeah, I think the stamina also, like the stamina of the pros in FIFA is just kind of nuts.
Sure, we're all N'Golo Kante out there.
But yeah, I think anything with the front 3 where you can attack and really spread out those center backs, that's your best bet offensively. Defensively, I don't think a 3-back or 4-back is necessarily better against a 3-5-2. I just think you just got to watch your wings, and you got to have help in the middle to cover the 2 strikers and cam.
Yeah, I mean, you can easily see, even with the 4-3-3 holding, getting exposed very quickly if you don't have people committing to getting back.
Yeah, I think there's a few formations, something like a 4-1-2-1-2 wide, like you're just gonna kind of get cut open, and I think you have to have at least 2 DMs or a DM and a couple center mids. You have to have that help in the central area of the park, or they're just gonna get it there and then spread you wide. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the early seasons of PCN, right. I mean, a couple teams here and there in 3-backs, but it's kind of around season 6-7, I think it started to become really popular. And you even see it in League 1, League 2 now. Teams are trying it out. So FIFA's just changed, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 4-3-1 was the dominant formation when I first got into it, and you hardly see that formation anymore.
Yeah, like if you're still running a 4-1-2, you got to grow up. 3-5-2 is the new wave. 4-3-3 holding. This is new exotic formations that are really changing the game, in my opinion.
I mean, 4-3-3 has always been around. That's the thing. It's just never really been prominent.
It's a hard formation to run because you have to put the effort in practice and preseason. You can't just decide one day we're going to play 4-3-3. You have to have people buy into it and play it long term.
Absolutely. No, I agree.
I think the 4-3-3. I mean, it's always been around, but you're getting more exotic looks and more exotic strategies with it now, especially with the default being the 3-5-2. It makes the 4-3-3 more attractive if you can run it correctly.
It's more rare, so I think there's less familiarity when you're playing against it. It's a little bit different. It's a lot different to playing a 3-5-2 if you're going to match up against a 3-5-2. So I guess it comes down to how much you've seen something and how much you can prepare for it. Because playing against a 3-5-2 can get repetitive, and you kind of know the patterns of play that you're looking for, and passing lanes that you want to cut out and stuff like that. And it's a little bit different when you face against formations that aren't used as much as the others.
Mm-hmm. That can go to an advantage.
I would
or a
say that
disadvantage if you can't pull it off.
3 and the 3-5-2, it's the 4-3 is harder to execute with guys who don't have great chemistry together already, because there's a lot of you have to interchange and read the other person more. Whereas in the 3-5-2 and the 4-2-3-1, you have very defined roles generally, and it's this person does this. Center mid has to do a little of this and a little of that.
There's a lot less variability in the 4-2-3-1.
Or the 3-5-2 is another one like that, where it's just kind of snap the pieces into place and off you go. The 4-3-3, you have to get everything molded together. It's tough.
If you pull it off, it looks beautiful. If you don't, then you're in a world of pain.
You turn it over, passing in the middle, and get owned on the counterattack.
Yeah, and I think the one formation that still is sort of, I think the default when a team comes together, they don't really have a style. They want 2 strikers. They don't want a 3-back. Is the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow. I've seen that run all sorts of ways where the center mid play wider. I've seen it where it's just a pure counterattacking. They sit deep. I think that's a solid formation if you're just getting a team. You don't want to try a 3-back, but you're not sure kind of how else to approach it. I think that's a formation. I don't know if it can be, title winning effective anymore, but I think it's a sturdy formation if you just need a solid base, and it works against most formations too.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those formations that the 3-5-2, you need very good center backs, and you need pretty good, if not very good, DMs to run correctly. If you're lacking just one center back or one CDM, you're going to get picked apart very quickly. So I think if you don't have that type of CB talent on your team, the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow is a safer formation because you'll have a little bit more help back there.
All depends how you play. Fullbacks, actually stay back and contribute to the defense and not get too adventurous if you want more help. The 3-back gives you an extra man to cover.
All right. Well, the last topic that we have for tonight's podcast is the rumor mill out there, which is actually not a rumor, it's fact, that there are a lot of goalies in GK Nation that are participating in a fitness challenge this season. And to speak on that, we have Khan, who has quite the workout in front of him.
I have messed up on a whole different level. So, if you're new to this league, I'm an idiot. Anyone will tell you that, okay? But I got a little cocky when it came to this fitness for GKs, and I said I will do 40 sit-ups every time I concede against a PCN team practice or actual game, right? And like an idiot I am, for some reason I thought 60. Okay, first of all, like an idiot. And then I go off and concede a bunch of goals today, and only in one day, right? So at the end of the day, I have 420 sit-ups.
Yeah, you have to get
I'd
those
like
done
to say.
before Sunday.
Unlucky.
Yeah, I have a hard time doing like 60. So there will be a video,
Stream it.
and it will be out.
Moral of the story is
Moral
Khan's
of
going
the
to have rock
story:
hard abs.
don't force yourself to exercise.
420, what an auspicious number.
You could say it was
Calculated.
So
Definitely stream it.
should I do a twerking challenge?
I
Yes.
just want to rip.
You'd have the most views of any video PCN's ever put out. So you don't know how excited people are to see this twerking
You don't know how
video that's
excited I
going to
am
come
for
out.
the season to go by and no one breaks rules and no one from Minnesota comes back and everyone just has a good time. God, I hope that happens.
Thank you, Dorsey, for rewarding us for
That's
not
the
cheating, for playing right.
What kind of world do we live in where we need a Dorsey twerk video
Maybe,
just to keep us clean?
Yeah,
It's
if we're
not a
good by the
world.
midseason transfer window, maybe I'll give a sneak preview.
With that being said, I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us tonight. I want to thank all the listeners for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you have any more member questions, please submit them in the Discord channel. We will feature them here, and we'll have the panelists discuss them further. Thank you all, and have a good night.